don't know why this is happening this time now when it didn't happen before, but I will be much more attentive to that. So thanks very much for mentioning it, folks. Scott is here. Hello, Scott. I really appreciate you coming in. And Paul, great. We've got sound. I really appreciate that. And then Scott says hi to everybody. And Scott always reminds me, please like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. So why don't we just switch right over, because I do want to talk to you about this project, because I'm really excited about this. This is Hand of Godzilla. And I think we've got a little bit where I can show you a little closer to where we're going. We're going to come back to my diorama coaching and mentoring. We're going to come back to Shane Hunt. But right now, these are some fun images that I created on ChatGPT. So that's kind of my, on the left-hand side, that's my Godzilla poster, which I'm really, happy about. And that is where we are with the Hand of Godzilla in the display case. I turned off the lights this morning and I got it in there. That's as far as I've gotten. And we're going to talk about how I got there, what all is involved. It's right here. I can show you. And then, what the next steps are and stuff like that. And then Will says, thanks for the compliment. And that's really cool. One of the things that was fun, Will, was when I was seeing this, I worked in the CNC industry for 20 plus years, 25 something like years. And I worked for a software company that sold the software that ran those lasers and all that kind of stuff. So I know G code, like we said in our comments and stuff like that. And I just think it would be fun to look at it and see. I don't know if you can look at your G code, but there's like, different editors that you can get that you can, open those up and take a look at them, because it's really fun. And I don't know, I just think it's really fun. That programming backside of lasers and stuff is neat. But you did a brilliant job, and those chairs look great. You got the curved backs, so nice job. And I think you did like 20 or 21. That was huge. I know I did the 10 for my last diorama, and that took, I don't know how long it took. It was certainly a day, if not two. So 20 must have been, I know it was on laser, but you got to assemble them. You got to, get them all together. And the assembly is pretty hard. I don't care how you produce the parts. The assembly is the final step, and that makes it pretty rough. But only 12. I'm sorry. I thought it was like 20 or something like that, 21. But yeah, very, very cool. And if you guys haven't seen it, take a look at Jordy Models, because it's pretty cool. And I like the pictures on the wall. It was pretty scary because he's making a haunted house. Okay, so let's get back to this. I want to show you where this thing is going. And before we do that, I'm going to talk about this. This was sent in by Shane Hunt. And Shane is starting to do a little bit of forging. And, I always liked blacksmithing work. It was intriguing. It was in the stories that I would read about and stuff like that. I've not ever done it, but I've like watched at street fairs or I actually went to a forge one time. It's down in Seattle. I don't know if it's still there even. It was called Ferny Forge, Ferny. Boy, if you guys are still around, that'd be cool. But I went down there in Ballard, and I got to see a real blacksmith working, doing what they do, and the machinery, because, some of that machinery, you can get a lot of machinery that's new, right? Or you make it yourself. But a lot of the machinery that these smithies and blacksmiths and craftspeople are using are from the 1800s. So they're 200 and 300 years old for some of this equipment that they're using. And it's amazing because, that was how they produced those things. And of course, still there's a lot of hand forging things going on today. What do they call someone that does horseshoes? A farrier. There are farriers everywhere around where I'm at because there's a lot of horses here, down in the Carolinas, all over the U.S., all over Europe, all over, there's lots of that. So this is just kind of an ancient skill that just, to me, is just fascinating. And so Shane's doing it, and it's really fun. So we're going to look at Shane's pictures again and see what Shane says. So the bottom picture is my first item I made, and that is the one on the table here. It's the yellow. It was done from a section of car coil spring. To me about half. It took me about 2.5 hours. The middle pick is my first set of tongs. It's 1/2 inch recycled round stock with a rip peened to hold it together. Top one's going to be a gift for my father. It's made from a rail spike and about 4 hours of work done to form and has been quenched, so it's hardened blade now. I still have a lot of grinding to do to make it a little bit more pretty when it will get its edge. Thanks for the interest, Bill. Hope you have a great day. Isn't that fun? Folks, I gotta tell you, sorry. And there's a really cool comment here. There's a place called Lawless in Soto. And so the Soto district is in Seattle. Soto stands for south of Dome. So that's the Soto area. And if there's something down there and they teach it, wow, that would be something cool to go to. Even watching classes, I think you can pick up so much. And I watch it online and stuff like that. And like I said, I've been to a couple or just one, but I've seen it done a fair amount, and I love it. I fully plan on having a forge. Now the forge is, where you heat your metal and stuff like that. And there's a lot of different types. And I think for me, I saw this thing recently, I searched it up, called mini forges. And people basically, they're taking just, fireplace or fire brick, and they're cutting fire brick, and then they're drilling through it and bolting it together and creating these little mini forges that you could literally run not indoors. I'm saying like in a garage or something like that. I plan on having a little place out at my barn. I've got a little barn it's got an overhang, a little awning. And out there, I can have a little mini forge. Now, the things that I do aren't as big and as Shane's doing here. I think that's really getting into it. And frankly, getting a large anvils are not cheap. Pardon me, they're to get a good anvil, it's an investment. $600 to $1,000 or $1,200 is some of the stuff I've heard. I saw a very nice one a number of years ago for about $350, and I almost bought it, but I don't have any place to put it. I didn't even have my barn back then. I just all that kind of stuff. But man, it's just something that there's so much you can do with that. And here's something else. This channel is about diorama building and modeling and scale models and miniatures and things like that. But my shop is a woodworking shop. And I think that when you get into this kind of thing, don't be afraid to take time away from it. Like let's say you're really into dioramas, or you're really into scale modeling, or you're really into whatever. I've heard people say, and I may have even said it before, I've got enough hobbies. And, maybe it's an issue of cost. That's certainly something you have to consider. But when it comes to learning a new skill, or learning a new craft, or learning a new technique, or learning just how to use a tool properly, right? I really think that those things, even though they're not your core concern or your core element or the core thing you're doing, like maybe diorama or painting or something like that, it's not your core. I think looking into those and understanding those things really adds to your diorama ability. Is that the right word? Your competencies go up when you have multiple interests. I've talked about this before. It's like the football player that is also a baseball player that also ran track, and there's these amazing athletes, and what it does is it trains their bodies to do amazing things. We had a quarterback like that, Russell Wilson, and he played baseball and stuff like that. It was so quick. And of course, the Chiefs quarterback has won so many, you know, I can't remember his name. What's his name? But the Chiefs quarterback, the sidearm throws, the athleticism is I think amazing these people, and it's because they were able to look beyond their core discipline. I think the same thing can happen with diorama building and any form of crafting. If you have an interest that's even really on the fringe, I think it can help. I don't look at a lot of diorama and model building sites. I almost force myself to, because while I do it, the thing that really makes me excited is figuring things out. I love problem solving. I'm just a very inquisitive person. So the kind of things that I look at are blacksmithing, you know, welding, how people in the 1300s built a community. I love archaeology. By having this diverse background, I think the ideas for your diorama and how to put things together and how to build a story and bringing emotion into your creation, all of those things are broadened. Or no, not broadened. I think that's the reason is by having a broad outlook, it's bringing in more interest in what you're able to do. You're bringing in an amalgam of many more things instead of, like I've said before in some of my videos. You know, when you start to look at your diorama, you're trying to get an idea. Well, you can just go to the pamphlet, and right there on the pamphlet, on the instructions inside the model, there's a little brief description. And you can virtually build your model based on only that. But what I really wanted you to do by reading that is take an interest in it. And I think that's the best way to go about it. That just sparks the interest. That gets you going. That gives you some reference point to look further out. And with the tools that we have today, including the AI tools, to go ahead and find and research and discover. And if there's any question that you can't chase down, I don't know what it could possibly be. You know, when I'm looking at a model and when I'm looking at my diorama and I'm trying to figure out how I put an element in, or what kind of thing is going to make it interesting, or what can make my diorama just so fun, I can't wait to show it to other people. I think a lot of that comes from what you put into it, and where that comes from is what you expose yourself to. So I just think it's a good idea to expose yourself to as many crafts, to learn the building part of it, to as many ideas, so like history and what's going on in the world, or regions that you're interested in. But do your research, do that look around, broaden that input that goes into your diorama, or just the display. I don't care if it's just a display. That's the same thing, because you're building a story, and by giving depth to it, by having this in your mind as you're building these things, you can literally tell which direction you want your figure to be facing another element in your diorama, based on the history you gave that person, based on the information you're looking up, and possibly even based on a real life story that happened in a situation similar to this. So I just think it's a boundless thing. And that's why I love when folks come in and send me pictures of their projects, or their creations, or their interests, because it's so applicable. And I just want to get the message out there that I think that it's not stealing time away from what you're trying to do. I think it's adding depth and adding so much to what you can create when you're trying to create whatever you're creating. I got a couple of more comments here. I've seen some cool coffee can forges. Yeah, those are great. Now, what we're talking about, again, Will and I are talking about a forge. Now, a forge, I always thought when I was a kid, forge didn't sound like the fireplace, but I guess it is. But that's basically the fireplace. That's what you heat up your metal in. So you have to build this little forge. And one way of building that little forge, and you can look up forge, mini forge, all kinds of stuff online. And it's really fun. But a coffee can forge is you take a coffee can, which is typically a good sized can, and then you put another can inside it, and then you can pour like fireplace grout around it. You have to make room for a hole, because what you then do is you take a propane torch and you make a mount so it's always at the same angle, so it kind of blows into there, but it goes around the inside of that inside little can that you pull out once you're done. Anyway, there's a whole process, and that's just one way to do it, and it's really easy. And I think these things, this is why I say, look around there. I think people don't understand if you haven't grown up with that around you. I was fortunate enough to be able to have that kind of thing around me when I was growing up. You don't realize how things are made. And so it makes it really difficult then to sometimes vision how to make something, right? You pick something up and it's like, okay, later on I'm going to show you this. This is a little carved, supposed to be a claw, right, for Godzilla's fingers. And so what I did was I carved this, and then I took some plastic and I heated it up and I formed it over there and stuff like that. Well, the whole point is if I weren't exposed to that process before, I couldn't have used the technique for building what I wanted to build in my diorama. The more exposure, the more broad your outlook in all these crafts and stuff. And I think you can do it on the internet if you're not able to do it by going out and looking in your community. I think that's just a really great added bonus to what we're doing. And you may find something that you're so interested in that becomes part of what you do, I mean, I'm not just building dioramas all the time. I also love woodworking, and I do a lot of woodworking, and maybe not as much as I used to, but gosh, I'm gonna show you a project today, and it's just having the ability to figure out that I can do something when I want something. I can make this little thing or whatever. That's a wonderful skill to have. And anyway, so I love promoting that, and if you have any craft, anything you've built, anything that you just learning you're interested about, gosh, send it in. I'd love to see it. And it doesn't matter the state in which it's in. I did not start building dioramas and they were the best thing ever. And I'm not saying they're the best thing ever now. I'm just saying they didn't look like they look now. And I'm really happy with how they look now, but it's a continuous thing. And you can't get somewhere unless you start somewhere else. So if you haven't tried something that you're not sure how to do, just go look it up. It's out there. And that, look at that. See, this is great. That is a fine lead in. I should write this down. That's a fine lead into my coaching class, which is right there. So I do coaching and mentoring, and Bob is my first student, and he's amazing. We just finished up our first thing. And basically what it is, he said, look, I want to learn how to build this, and I've talked about it already, but I just finished this up. So all the videos are going to start posting tomorrow, and they'll, one video a week. So there's 5 videos lined up right now about how to do this. And it's a little bit different than my other videos that I've done before, because I think they're better, because in teaching someone and working with someone directly, I'm able to Bob will say, but what about this? I don't understand this quite enough. And I'm thinking, oh, yeah, I just kind of glazed by that. I did not go into detail. I did not get far enough into it. So what I do in the training class, so we meet, 2 times a week. And so we meet on Tuesday. And so on Tuesday, we'll talk about something. And a couple of times now, I've been able to produce something pretty quick, on Thursday. Typically, it would be for the next Tuesday if it's something big. And I've done that too. or like I do it on Saturday or whatever. But the point is, he'll say, I want to do this. And then I go really fresh into producing a video about how to do that, about how to do that technique, how to, what tools I use, what are the other things. And so that's what these videos are going to be. And and so they're structured a lot different, but if you follow them along, you'll be able to do this. And I don't think it's like all that difficult, but it's really fun to be able to talk about all those nuanced things and all the little tiny things that you do when you're building, because just like Will, when he was making those little chairs, he didn't just sit down and stand up and there was a chair sitting there when he was done. No, he had to do all this kind of stuff. Well, that's what happens in these coaching sessions, is we do all that kind of stuff, and I film all that stuff. And it's really fun. So I think, number one, I'm making better, technically better, no, maybe not technically better videos, but so far as learning, I think I'm showing you more about the learning. I think I'm learning how to film a little better so you can see the process of building something that I'm trying to build. And I think it's going to raise, the bar a lot on all of my stuff just because of this interaction. So it's really a lot of fun, and I'm really, really enjoying it. Happy is here. Hello. Thanks very much for coming in. Lovely to see you. And so I think next we're going to take a look at, and if you have questions about the coaching, just talk to me, because there's more coming of that. So these are some, I said before, I created these on ChatGPT and I had a lot of fun. I also wanted to kind of give you an update on the figures. I have not printed a figure yet. I have not created a usable STL yet. I think I'm going beyond the AI's ability to do what I'm asking it to do. And it might be a paid thing because it has limits to what you can do in certain sections. And I think I explained this before. There's a limit to like how many questions you can ask. But then there's another limit to, how much analytics it can do. It seems to be, at least, because it will give me these prompts, like I can't produce another image, you've used that up today, but then I can still keep talking to it about other things. So I think, so AI, while I'm intrigued and having fun with it, and it is helpful in many ways, and it was able to produce this, which was fun through my prompting and stuff like that. The thing that is still difficult is, and these are all free, so there's the caveat. I'm not paying for any of these services, but I think that a lot of people are using them for free. But I would say this, it doesn't have a long memory. It can't do complex tasks like you have a conversation with someone over coffee and then you both get up and that person goes and they do something and then you go and you do something based on that conversation. AI is not there. I can tell you that right now. Even if that information exists in the conversation, and by that I mean when you're in AI, you're typing, you're typing to someone, sending chats and messages and corrections, stuff like that. And as that builds, as that text string builds, it gets further away from your objective, your stated original objective. There's just too much data because it will go back, I believe, and look at that and it confuses itself. So there's a lot of great with AI. It's not 100%. Certainly it's still brand new. But I still think there's a lot of great stuff there. And I am enjoying it quite a bit. So here is where we're at with building the diorama. And I did this picture just before we started today, really, because I just wanted to show you in relation what's coming next, because what we will have is, this is a figure, just so you can see the size of 1/35th scale figure. I will have figures here and also on scaffolding on both sides. So that's the general design. Let's go back to the picture again. So you see there, it's going to be in the middle, and then there'll be scaffolding with 1/35th scale figures on both sides. Now, the great thing about this is I've been watching, Godzilla movies more and more, and I go for the ones in the 50s and stuff like that. And those are just the ones I grew up with and I love. And that scientific kind of look that they had, where it was like this 50s, 60s modern, supposed to be space age looking, but it's not quite space age looking for what we understand today. I love that aesthetic. It's a really, really cool look. And I've used it. I used it in Wolfenstein, which is up there. And I want to use it again because I think it's just really cool. So that's what's going to happen with the diorama. I got to be building that, and that's where all that sprue and styrene that I purchased, that's where that's from, and that's what it's for. So that's coming up. But first off, let's see how I built the hand. So I may get some questions about this, but I built an armature underneath it because I love, like, Peter Jackson redid King Kong. I can't remember the year, but I bought, the special edition, all that kind of stuff, and they basically got the original Kong armature, which is all metal and stuff like that, that was wrapped and then they put, fur on it, and it was all stop motion. I love that, right? Well, that's why I built it like this, because I liked that so much. I just love the fact that they would build this armature and then build up these things over it. So I did the same thing. So how did I build the armature? So this is probably the best picture here to look at. What we have here is just a couple of dowels. They're screwed into the bottom. There's screws into the bottom of that stand. They come up, they go into the palm, and the palm is made out of basswood. So it's actually pretty soft wood. It's not very heavy. And so I glued that together. You kind of see where the knuckles are. You see where the palm is. I couldn't do it with just a flat board. And then the fingers are dowel that I went ahead and drilled into the ends of and just put some thick copper wire. And that let me bend them at the joints. And for the size that I just went off my own finger. I'm like, okay, so there's the first knuckle. That's what I used. I did find that I couldn't do the end of the finger. So I've got, the two finger sections. I hope this doesn't look bad, me making all these gestures. But I did that section and that section, but the claw is really going to be the end of the finger. So I didn't do a third because they were just getting really long and spindly. But what's going to happen now is that is going to be my superstructure. Now, to close up and hold this in place, that's where I went to this. Another thing that I saw them doing in building up these armatures for these stop motion creatures and stuff like that is they would wrap jute and cord around it. So I did that. And then I came back with just some cloth. And then I Mod Podged that cloth all the way around it. And then when that dried, this thing still, I can still move it, but the cloth and stuff on there is pretty stiff, so it's going to stay there. But it's going to allow me to put like the clay on it. Now for the base, I wanted the arm, so that's like my cross section of the just below the wrist, about halfway up the forearm, and then I went ahead and brought in some dowel, or it's not dowel actually. This is just some square stock from my basswood that I got. And then I put cloth around that. And then if you look right there in the middle of the palm, there's a hole. Right there, we'll come back to that, but that hole right in the middle of the palm is for lighting. So the next thing I did, and I talked about this a little bit ago, this is the form that I made for the claw. And so we'll go into this. That's just the other view. And here are the three claws that I've made. Now I have a video of me making these claws. So let me show you that real quick. And we'll see how this looks.
So when I'm heating up the form, I'm using high. I'm putting the heat gun on high, but then I go on low when I melt the plastic because it doesn't take that or doesn't need that high a heat to melt. And then I'm pulling back. If I pull down, I burst through like I've done a couple of times already. But if I pull straight back, it's wrapping around and getting this, which will be a full top. And then I have to cut these. I'll probably use the form to do that as well. You know, I'll draw a line on here that I can follow to cut. So I've got, you know, proper cut lines. And you just blow on it and it's going to hold that shape. So I got one more to do.
Okay, so that's all that was. It was just real quick, but that shows you the process that I used to make these. Now, on this form, and here's the form that I made. On this form, I can't, I was able to make like this side, okay, by pulling it around and then holding it till it you know, cooled down enough and it holds the shape. But then I had to do it on the other side too. I couldn't quite get it all the way around there. As a matter of fact, let's go to the top down and I think we can see a little bit clearer. So I'll go to the top down camera and see if we can get a better look at this. And so here is the form. I'm going to lock this so it doesn't, oh gosh, here we go. I'm going to try to get it to focus and then I'll stop it from focusing. There we go. So here's the form. And before I put the plastic on it, I would heat this up. So this was held in my vise and then I'd heat this thing up real well. And then I would take this and I hope you saw it at the beginning. This is just basically, it's one of those condiment cups. It's a clear condiment cup. And when you heat that sucker up, it just completely loses its form. And then I just placed it around there. And what you saw me doing is holding it there very tightly and then pulling it down and kind of forcing it back so it forms and adheres to, you know, the form very well. And then once it was done, I took the form and you see that line on both sides? I would just cut that and then take the two cut pieces and stick them together. And that's what we had. Were you guys seeing that? Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, you guys. I'm such a bozo. Okay. So here it is. That is, I'm trying to get our focus here. Sorry about that. So this is it. And the form is here. So what I was saying is I would heat this up. It's held in the vise. And then I would take the plastic and put it over there and then hold it here. And then you saw me in the video. I was like pulling it down to get it to adhere really nicely to the form. And that was how it was able to get it. So then when you're done, it just slips right off and there is my piece. And that's the top. I did this again. I just turned this around and I would pull back this way to get the bottom. And then when it was done, on either side, I will cut here and here on both sides. That would separate the top from all this extra. Do the same thing at the bottom and then glue them together. Boy, I'm really sorry about the screen not changing, folks. I thought I had it. But does that make sense? These little cups are really, really simple to work with. I was wearing gloves when I first did it. You don't need them. It's not that hot. I was using a heat gun, which gets quite hot. But you might be able to do it with a hairdryer on high, you know. I also found that when I was trying to heat up those cups to get them to, you know, be loose and stuff like that, you had to heat both sides. It just worked better. You know, and once it was all heated, then it worked right. But if you only hit it from one side, it did not want to soften up properly. It's just weird somehow. But it worked real quick. I knocked them out pretty fast. It was not hard. I did film it all, so I have much more video there. These all, everything that I'm doing will go into long form videos eventually. So know that that'll be coming. And when I do those instructional videos, because of the coaching class and stuff like that, there's two places I'm posting, and I because my current student just really uses the YouTube. Everything's on YouTube right now in the members section. So all those videos are actually available in the members section right now, but they're progressively starting tomorrow will become posted for the public. In the future, they won't be posted for public because they're going to be built into classes. But I'm still learning how to, put together a class and things like that you could buy for like $3 or $5 or whatever, and then you get the whole thing, and then you just do it over and over and over, watch as many times as you want, and then I still offer the personalized coaching. So now, if I could just figure out my cameras and stuff like that, that'd be much better. Very sorry about that. So I'm going to show you this. These are those after I glued them together. Now, I wasn't sure what to use. I used super glue, and the super glue is what kind of fogged that clear plastic. And so if you don't want them fogged, you're going to have to find the proper glue. I just didn't look too far. I'm like, I need them fogged because I'm putting lights in there. And so I just left them that way. I also paint them later. So here is after I put the electrical in there, and I filmed all that. And the electrical was real simple. I'm using my own electrical. I'm not using pre-made electrical. You certainly could, like the diorama stuff that I made or I used last time. You could certainly use those in here just fine. I just didn't have enough for this project. So I'm doing all my own lighting design. And then there's that electrical wire that kind of goes up through the bottom into the palm. So the next thing is I need to put clay all over this thing. It is going to be sculpted like, his hand, Godzilla's hand. But to do that, I have to put on a fair amount of clay. And milliput is pretty expensive. Sculpey is not. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the air dry Sculpey first, all over it to get the general shape. And I said this before. See where that thumb is? That thumb might be a little bit too low. That thumb is positioned as it would be on a human hand, but Godzilla's hand is a little bit. It's not a human hand. Number one, it's only got 3 fingers and 1 thumb. It is an opposable thumb, but there's a big argument online about, does Godzilla have opposable thumbs from the original Godzilla? Well, it's not a big argument. There was a thread that I read, and it was kind of funny. But the point is, I may need to move that thumb a little bit. And then once I start putting all that air dry clay on, it will give me not the final skin, but basically what the muscles would be. And the reason is the air dry clay, I found out with my couple of last dioramas, not the last one, the one before that, my World War I trench diorama. The air dry clay does shrink. And it doesn't shrink quickly. It's like after a week, you notice, you're like, wow, that's actually, shrunk down pretty good. So before I do my final skin, I want to get that air dry clay on there, fingers, everything, incorporating the claws, because how Godzilla's claws or skin comes up to the claw, it's very different than our finger, because it comes right out the end, basically. And so I got to do all that, let that dry, let it shrink. That's expected. And then I'll put the final coat with milliput, which is, number one, it's more of a plasticine look when you're working it, and it won't shrink the same way. And it'll sculpt really nice. So that's how I'm going to go about it. I could do just continue with the air dry clay, and that's another way to go. I'm just going to do it a different way. But you could do the air dry clay, because let me explain this. The air dry clay is going to shrink proportionate to its mass, right? So if I put these big thick areas of the air dry clay, it's going to shrink 10% of its overall mass. Well, if I then just put, after it's shrunk, a very thin coat of that same clay over the top of that to do my final skin, that would be okay, because it would shrink according to its overall mass, which is much thinner, so wouldn't shrink as much. So that's another way to do it. I just wanted to do the milliput because I think I'm gonna get a better texture out of the milliput, and I do have it's a pretty heavily I guess textured skin. There's like big lumps on his skin when you look real close. It's not like the smooth skin with a texture on it. No, it's like these big clumps all over. So almost like alligator scales. So I need to do that kind of thing. And that I'll be able to do with the milliput, I think, more effectively without the cracking and shrinkage that I'll have with the first coat of the air dry clay from Sculpey. But the Sculpey stuff will be great because I do have to put a good mass on it. You can tell I've got to make this thing look like, he had big, huge, fat fingers and all kinds of stuff. So all that has to be put on there. And I'm sure that's next week. So that is how Godzilla, the Hand of Godzilla is going. I'm really happy with the size. And like I said previously, once I get to that point and when I get the hand to like the primer point, and this goes back to previous videos, when I'm building a diorama, I like to get an anchor. I like to get a primary thing built, which becomes the anchor or the hub or the reference or whatever for everything else that will happen after that. You can deviate from that, whatever, in your storyline, stuff like that, but everything is around that. Well, that's what this is. This is the anchor for this diorama. This will then allow everything else to have enough context to make sense. Without the hand, nothing else I'm going to build is going to make sense, and vice versa. With the hand, everything in there is going to be like, oh, that's what they're doing, right? Because I'm going to have scaffolding, and I think I can fit 3 floors of scaffolding. But I also kind of want it to look like, a 1950s, 1960s kind of laboratory, right? I keep saying right, sorry. I know that bugs some people. But a laboratory in that setting where they also have a press room. I love that thing about, pardon me. Hey, there's Shane. Hey, Shane. Excuse me. Shane Hunt just came on. Sorry, Shane, I've already done your stuff, but you can see it later. But yeah, I really love. Shane is the person that sent us the forging and his blacksmithing. So very, very cool to see you, Shane. So basically what I'm saying is once I have that in there and I put all that stuff in there, I want to have these not offices, but scaffolding. But I do want an office because in all those Godzilla movies, they always kind of had the press. Remember? There always somebody had to get up in front of the press. And that's always a big thing back in the 50s. The press, they were telling you what's going on. There wasn't this, secretive stuff like what's going on now. They were right out there and they're telling you, look, man, we don't know what's going on, but there's this big guy and he's stomping around the city and we're going to take him out. So I really want to have a little press room in here somewhere, where they can talk to the press. It was just one of those kitschy things about the Godzilla movies that I loved. And so I'm going to do that. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So let us now, we're going to take a look at what else I've been doing in here. So I made a little styrene organizer, and this might be helpful to some folks because I have, all this styrene, and it was in a cup. I don't have it here, but because there's still some in it, but I had it in a cup. And so I would just shove all the styrene in there. When I'd look, I'd dump it out. it was just a pain. And since I'm going to be using a heck of a lot of styrene to make all this stuff, I needed a holder. And so this is an old IKEA magazine holder. And so I just made those pieces, as you can see there to the right. These are just, it's the same thing, they're just varying lengths. And this is also the wood that I got. So they just stack in there just like that. And then when it was done, I cut, the external uh, ones that were sticking past it, and then I got my styrene in there, and it's not even glued in. I mean, the individual pieces, that make the dividers are glued together, but they're just slid into that magazine rack, and I think it works great. And the reason I have it like this is, you always have less pieces or shorter pieces, and but you just want to have a place to put them. So that's right in the corner of my desk, and I'm thrilled with it. And I think it's really nice to have my styrene right there. Speaking of the desk, there's that the awesome deal I got from last Saturday. I got all this balsa and dowel from Hobbytown in Redmond. They moved over a year ago and they didn't really have a place to store it. And so I got all that for $50 and I just can't believe it. It's just amazing. So then I also told you last week I'd show you a little bit about what I did to the model area. That's a wide shot of the model area. So the shelves above and stuff, those are all new. And I was able to make some shelves for some of my older dioramas. And then I just put a bunch of fun, kitschy junk on it. Here's that is Retreat from Kasserine Pass. There's Wolfenstein without its base. There is the D&D diorama, Barrett's Coffee House Crondor. And then on the left, we've got Emma Carlos Nichiro. On the right, that is the British bunker. And yeah, it's just really fun. I like all this kitschy kind of stuff around me. I think it's stimulating and fun. I'm also a huge Battlestar Galactica fan. And that's one of those Marvel super special. That thing is the size of like Life used to be back in the day. It's a huge book. It's not the size of a small book. This is fun because I like to put stickers on it, but what it is it's an old Dremel case like you'd have in the old hardware stores, and it actually has the original drawers. I've got those taken out and stored, but this is an old Dremel case, and I have like tea and coffee in there, but and then here is where I've got Oscar's picture. It's right up top, and then that's that's Rex. Nobody ever had a chance to meet Rex. He passed away many years ago, but that is right over there. And then that is kind of that's a jetpack that I built years ago that I never finished. And then there's the World War I. Just some fun dummy ammo and just some fun stuff. And I think it's fun to put these things here because it feels, homey when I come in here to work. Thank you so much, everybody. That's it. I want to show and talk about my patrons, and I'd love to talk a little bit more about the coaching because I've had a lot of questions about the coaching online, and I try to really go into it and answer those questions because I had a bunch of great questions this week. But the other thing about the coaching is this: when we do the coaching, and I've talked about it, but when I do my coaching, the person I'm working with right now, it's Bob, will give me a picture and says, "Hey, we want to do this. I'd like to learn how to do this," and then I'll go away, I'll build it, and I'll make it into a plan, film it, and then we'll come back and watch it, and then we'll build together. But this is the funnest part. Then he'll say, well, wait a minute, how about this? Can we do that? And then I'm building something new for the next one because it's 2 days per week. And so I'm always building another video. And so, pardon me, I talked about that earlier. And those videos are coming out. But what I would love to know is what videos of this type are you interested in? Do you have an idea for a video? Because the other thing I'm doing with the videos, these ones, like I said earlier, are going to be posted up so everybody can see them. But I want to make other videos that people want to see that I can post and keep in the members area so that there's more things when you become a member of YouTube that you can see. And some of those, again, are going to be made into, like, you can purchase, it's a digital download, it'll have a book. I'm also creating guidebooks for the video guides that I'm doing. So there's like a book, a digital book that you can download, and I'm doing it so it can be printed. I still like printing stuff. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. And so I would love ideas from you because I don't think I ask enough. I kind of like, I think I'll do this, or I'll talk about this. I really don't ask enough about what you would like to see me build or what you would like to see an instructional video on. So yeah, please make some suggestions because I'd really like to see them. And don't mind if it's during the live or this replay, because remember this will be posted tomorrow night. I messed up. I got a new computer system set up. I did all this stuff, and now stuff's not going the place I want. So last week, this replay of last week's didn't post until Sunday, where it typically comes out now at midnight tonight. It will be on for everybody to watch the replay. So anyway, I'm working on all those things, and I'm working on more videos, and I would love to get your ideas for more videos that I can post for the members area, but also some will be on here too. So I thank you very much. Let's look at our patrons. These folks are wonderful because they've joined and they support the channel, and I need to get some more things posted up there for them, but I hope you're happy with what I'm able to put up there. I am putting exclusive things on Patreon that's not shared with YouTube so that there is something there, that's of value to you that you can have. And I've got the video to do it. I took my time in carving this and showing you how to do it, and that video is going on Patreon today or tomorrow, and it's also a kind of behind the scenes. And so yeah, that stuff will be going on Patreon, and that's an exclusive. So thank you again very much to my patrons, to my YouTube members, and for you for watching, of course. I wouldn't be doing this if nobody was watching, and I really appreciate it. I do have one more thing. Winston Smith. Winston, man, I'm telling you, I get these suggestions, right? People will say, hey, you could do that, or you could do this or that. But Winston always comes up with a good one. And Winston said, I want to see this motorized. And just a twitch or a wiggle. And I'm telling you, Winston, I didn't even think about that. But years ago, this was during COVID. This is probably 4 years ago I bought this. This is a little Arduino controlled servo. And as soon as I read your comment, I'm like, no kidding. Because I didn't think of that. I pulled this out. So I've had this sitting in my electronics gear for like 3-4 years. I have no idea how it will work or what kind of code it needs for the Arduino, but it actually plugs into an Arduino. And I am thinking about putting an Arduino in here because aside from that, what I had thought about was this. This is an air pump. And what did this come from? I don't know, but I save all this stuff, I tear it apart. And so this little air pump is possibly going to go in there too. I'm working on it. I have to be able to control it. I have to be able to do a couple of things. Number one, at baseline, turning it on and off, right? But I also have to be able to turn it on and off when I want to turn it on and off. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. Hello, Airdink. Airdink just popped in. Great to see you, Airdink. Hello. I haven't seen Airdink in quite a while. So this is going to possibly go in there. And what can I use an air pump for in a laboratory? That's what to think about. So I'm looking at that. But yeah, thank you so much. Those kind of comments, those kind of things are wonderful to see, and I appreciate them greatly because it gives me ideas. You know, I mean, I think I have all the ideas I need, and then something like Winston says, you know, why not that? And that happens all the time. Scott does it. Bob, I mean, I get ideas from everybody. So if you have an idea, throw it at me, and it might end up in the diorama. That happens in ever since I started this. There's not a diorama that I've built that other people haven't contributed yet to. You know, I mean, that's the truth, because I get your ideas, and if it's gonna work, it goes in there, and I love it, and I love the fact that, you know, you've got a little stake in it, because your stuff's in there. And if you ever get these things to a show and you get to see it, that would be kind of cool too. You know, say that was my idea, which is kind of fun. Shane says, I'll try to get some video of me pounding metal. That'd be great, because I can do, I have to kind of process it. So make sure it's kind of short. But yeah, I'd love to see it. Quenching is great, you know, firing it, coming out of the coals. I don't know if you're using coal or if you're just using, you know, gas, however you're firing. But I'd love to see your forge. I think I need to go back and look at your comment, because I did comment about your forge. I'd love to see that. So thanks very much, Shane. And thanks everybody for coming in. AirDink has been around since like the very start of me doing videos. This is wonderful to see people come back. So I really appreciate it, folks. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I am going to get outside. I got to do some outside stuff today. It's very nice out there, and so I'm going to get my toes in the dirt, I think, and do some yard work. But I hope you have a wonderful weekend. I hope it's nice where you are, and yeah, be careful if you're in the United States. We have Memorial Day weekend, and Memorial Day weekend is about our soldiers and the people that have given everything, you know, for your country. And this is not just for the U.S., because all countries have this kind of day. And so just think about what you're doing on Memorial Day. It's not about catching that big fish. It's not about the barbecue. Though I'm going to be barbecuing and all that, it really is about those people that gave their lives for us, for all of us, no matter what country you're from. I have to be very clear about that, because, gosh, you know, people see this all around the world, and I think that's wonderful. And as a ex-soldier, you know, I'm a veteran. I have a very great respect for all soldiers and people that have given them lives for their country. That's everything. So remember that, but also be very safe on the roads. I will not be getting in my car until Tuesday. That's a fact. I live way out in the woods and stuff, on the way to a mountain pass, and the freeways on a weekend like this are literally impassable. So I'm here and I'm building. I'm having a good time. Thank you so much, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful Memorial Day in the United States. I hope you have a wonderful weekend wherever you are in the world. And I'm looking forward to sharing more with you next time. We'll see ya. Bye-bye.